Welcome on into the Wolverine TV. Clayton Safey here with EJ Holland. It's Michigan State week on the team side of things, but in-state recruiting never sleeps. Ramps up this week. There's been a lot of questions to the coaches and players even this week, about how big this game is for recruiting. You always see, I guess, one or two big-time battles, it seems like, each and every year between the two schools. But let's look a year ahead to 2023 in that cycle. In a couple battles that may be brewing. Now, a lot of these aren't just Michigan and Michigan State head-to-head. There's other schools involved as well. But, with both teams being in the mix, we'll discuss all of these. And we'll start with elite quarterback Dante Moore out of Detroit King, who we talk a lot about because he's such an important target in the state, especially for Michigan. Devin Gardner works closely with him as his trainer. He's been to Michigan. He's been to Michigan State a couple times as well on visits. Your thoughts on Dante Moore, EJ, being on this list?
Yeah, obviously Dante is the big fish in state, like Will Johnson this cycle, Donovan Edwards before that. Michigan has been able to close with the big fish the last couple of cycles. And I think I'm not guaranteeing that Michigan will land Dante Moore. I think they're in a very good spot. I think Michigan is definitely in a better spot than Michigan State right now. But like you said, he's visited both schools. I would say that the schools kind of headlining Dante's recruitment are Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, and then I would say Notre Dame and Michigan State are also high up there as well. But right now, I would give Michigan the advantage. Like you said, he trains with Devin Gardner, former Wolverine. He's been to Michigan plenty of times. Michigan actually offered Dante as a seventh grader. He has a great personal relationship with Jim Harbaugh, a growing relationship with new quarterbacks coach Matt Weiss. Michigan area recruiter Ron Bellamy has known him since he was a kid. So all those relationships are there. The familiarity with Michigan's there. He's a King kid, so he's not too far away from Ann Arbor. He visited for the game against Washington, will likely be back for the game against Ohio State. So I think, everything's kind of lining up for Michigan to be right up there with Dante. I think, even though Michigan State's hosted him twice, it's still a little bit of an uphill battle for the Spartans.
One that isn't as much of an uphill battle for Michigan State is another Detroit kid, Jaylen Thompson, 2023 four-star defensive lineman who impressed me down in Columbus in the spring at a camp I was at for Under Armour there. Your thoughts on him here? And, this one seems to be more of a true battle, I guess.
Yeah, I think this one's definitely more of a head-to-head battle. I think Michigan and Michigan State are the two teams really, really high on Thompson's mind. So Thompson visited Michigan for the game against Washington in September, came away really impressed with the atmosphere and just the overall environment in Ann Arbor. He's built up a really good relationship with Michigan defensive line coach Sean Nua. Again, Ron Bellamy, Steve Klinkscale, these are guys that are pretty much involved in all area recruitments in the Detroit Metro. So, he knows them well. But I think Michigan State is scary for a couple of reasons. He's been out there a few times. I think he's visited Michigan State more than Michigan. On top of that, they went out and the Spartans did went out and hired Thomas Wilcher out of Cass Tech. So his former high school head coach is there, and I think that kind of gives them a little bit of a leg up. I would actually give Michigan State the advantage, if I'm being completely honest, early on in the recruitment of Jaylen Thompson. But I do feel like, Michigan can I don't feel like there's much of a gap. I do feel like Michigan can jump Michigan State, especially with the season that they're having. And I think, not that Michigan State's not having a great season. Obviously, they're undefeated as well. But I think this game will, really kind of help shape recruitments like these where it's more head-to-head. So even though MSU has a little bit of an advantage right now, I do think Michigan, again, is right up there and can always lead Michigan State, and they've had success recruiting out of Cass in the past as well, landing Raheem Anderson last cycle. So we'll kind of see how that one unfolds. But I really like Thompson. He's a solid, top 250 prospect that, can play with his hand in the dirt. He can be a little bit of an edge rusher as well. But, that's kind of where things stand overall with him.
All right, and then moving to the offensive side of the ball with Amir Herring, a four-star offensive lineman, plays tackle, but probably more of a guard at the next level. A guy that is, as you see there for everybody watching, West Bloomfield kid, Ron Bellamy ties, loves Michigan. but is also interested and has visited in Michigan State. But yeah, Amir Herring, a kid who seems like he's been a Michigan lean for some time. Almost will admit that if you interview him, but has still always kind of been adamant that some of the other schools are in the mix, Penn State's and things like that, and Michigan State is within that group.
Yeah, I think actually the top two schools I would say are Michigan and Michigan State. I do think Michigan is definitely the leader there. I think they have actually a pretty good lead by a wide margin. But Michigan State might be that second school. He does like some other Big Ten programs. He, like you said, he's visited Penn State. He's visited Ohio State. He's made trips around the Midwest. I believe he even made a little bit of a Southern swing as well. But he has loved Michigan for many years. He's a guy that aspires to be a future medical doctor, so he loves what Michigan can offer from an academic standpoint. And obviously, when you look at academics, there's no true comparison between Michigan and Michigan State. I feel like Michigan obviously has the superior academics, so that's playing a huge role in the recruitment of Herring. You mentioned Ron Bellamy. Obviously, being on staff, Bellamy has known Herring for many years, coached him at West Bloomfield. But at the same time, Michigan State's done a really nice job of, rising up the list with Herring. They obviously went into West Bloomfield this cycle and pulled Dillon Tatum, who is sure to recruit Amir next cycle to join him out in East Lansing. But I think, Michigan State knocking off Michigan for Amir Herring is really tough to see. I think right now Michigan has a good lead. I have a future cast pick in for Herring to land in Ann Arbor, and I still feel confident in that pick.
Sticking along the offensive line for the next couple here, the last couple, Cole Dellinger out of Clarkston, a 4-star, another offensive guard who I really like as a prospect, kind of a mauler type on the interior there, a technician, I would say. He wears the winged helmet for Clarkston there. Will we see him in a winged helmet at the college level?
So his brother Garrett actually, spurned the in-state schools, and he went out to LSU. LSU is kind of a dumpster fire right now, so I don't feel like Cole is actually going to go south to join him. I think Cole's going to stay in the Midwest. He's become more and more of an important target for Michigan. They've really made him more of a priority as an interior offensive lineman. I think they're in a really good. Michigan's in a really good spot to land both Herring and Dellinger. But yeah, I feel like, it's more of a Michigan State battle too. I don't think there are a ton of other schools that Dellinger is really high on. I think it is mostly Michigan and Michigan State. Michigan hosted him for a visit earlier this year. I know Michigan State had him on campus as well. Michigan recruited his brother Garrett really hard, so there's previous connections there. Jim Harbaugh was personally involved in that recruitment, and so he knows Dellinger's parents really well. And even though there was a change along the offensive line with Ed Warner leaving, Sharon Moore has done a really nice job of recruiting Cole and has been involved with the family as well. And again, you always factor in Klingscale and Bellamy being, two guys with great in-state reputations. It's hard to really – I don't have a pick in for Cole right now. I think it's a bit of a toss-up. I think that's going to be one of the more interesting in-state recruitments to follow.
Finishing up with Dillon Senda, 3-star offensive center out of Dearborn Divine Child. Not necessarily getting the headlines that Cole Dellinger, Amir Herring, some of these other guys get when you talk about the offensive lineman in state for this cycle. Still an important one. There's an echo there.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but Senda is one of the top center prospects in the country. And center recruits often are a little undervalued, but I think Senda is as good as you can find at the position. He's kind of an interesting kid in the sense that he has a really wide net of options. I don't think there's a true favorite for Senda. I think both Michigan and Michigan State have done a nice job recruiting him. He's another high academic kid, so I think that really appeals on the Michigan side of things. Aiden Hutchinson is a guy that he knows really well and actually reached out to him after he got an offer from Michigan. So I think that helps too. But right now, I think with Senda, it feels earlier than some of these other recruits. It feels like he's still kind of taking in the process. He just picked up an offer from Stanford. I know that was a big one for him. But I do think Michigan and Michigan State are both legitimate players here. And it'll be interesting to follow his recruitment. And in the same way, it'll be interesting to follow, Cole. I think those two are a little more wild cards than the first three guys we talked about.
Man, he's one of the few offensive linemen that, Aiden Hutchinson is actually nice to and doesn't terrorize. But so, yeah, those are our 5 kind of Michigan State early look at some of those recruiting battles that are brewing a little bit for 2023. EJ, you don't participate in our staff picks article on Friday before each game, so your prediction won't be in there. Can I nail you down on a random, just throwing out a prediction for Michigan State?
Michigan 27, Michigan State
0.
17. Okay. 27-17 Michigan.
There you go.
Yeah, 0.
Yeah, shut up. I mean, that'd be a good troll job. I'm sure it'd be clipped up if that doesn't happen. But, yeah, 10-point win. I think you have the under there, too, which is 50.5. So I know, EJ, you're a betting man. So there you have it. But, yeah, Michigan State recruiting battles. It'll be interesting to see what happens on Saturday, how this one impacts recruiting. And you can follow all of that at thewolverine.com. Find us there. Just type in thewolverine.com in any browser that you have. And you can always find us right there over at the Wolverine, and we'll see everybody there.